At 3:15 a.m., my doorbell camera captured Beverly Cranston, the HOA president of Willow Trace, hammering a rubber gavel against my storm door like she was trying to exorcise demons from the hinges. She declared to the foggy cul-de-sac with a triumphant tone, "You are evicted," while holding up a laminated page printed in Comic Sans font. 2 hours and 15 minutes later, at 5:30 a.m., she called again. She hissed through the phone like a deflating tire. "Why are you still there?" As if I had violated some unwritten dawn curfew by continuing to exist inside my own mortgaged home. My name is Nolan Pierce. I keep to myself in Lakefield, mow my lawn in perfectly straight lines, and own a quiet orange cat named Tater who judges everyone from the window. My greatest thrills include overwatering a struggling lemon tree and putting felt pads on chair legs to protect the hardwood floors. Beverly, with her helmet-shaped hairdo, yardstick-perfect posture, and a smile that looked like she was mentally writing you a citation, had taken over the HOA last spring after what locals called the banana bread coup. She had bribed half the neighborhood with homemade baked goods and then performed what she called a vote count reconciliation that somehow made her president despite losing by 12 votes. She pronounced the words community standards the way paramedics announce time of death, with finality and zero emotion. The first week of June marked the beginning of my personal nightmare. Beverly started issuing paper reminders that she taped to my mailbox with painter's tape, careful not to damage what she called HOA assets. The violations were increasingly absurd. My house paint was apparently aggressively beige and not on the approved color spectrum, whatever that meant. My wind chimes were emitting notes in an unpermitted minor key, which she claimed violated noise harmony guidelines. My trash bins faced east, which according to her, invited raccoons of ill repute to congregate. She escalated her surveillance tactics, pacing my sidewalk with a clipboard every morning at 6 a.m. sharp, measuring my grass height with a knitting needle she kept in her purse, and photographing my porch swing as if it were evidence in a federal crime. She spread rumors at the monthly book club that I was running an illegal short-term rental because my cousin from Denver visited twice in 1 month. She told anyone who would listen that strange cars meant strange activities, despite my cousin driving the same Honda Civic he had owned for 8 years. She trespassed onto my property multiple times to verify fence height compliance, once bringing a level and a measuring tape at 6:30 in the morning while I was having coffee. She documented everything in a leather-bound journal she called the violation log, writing notes with a fountain pen like she was chronicling war crimes. Each trespassing episode included her pausing to attempt petting Tater, who hated her on what I can only describe as a cellular level. The cat would arch his back and hiss whenever she approached, his orange fur standing up like he had been electrocuted. She later documented this in an email to the board claiming my cat had brandished claws with intent to intimidate an HOA official. She even attached a blurry photo of Tater sitting in the window, circling his face with a red marker and labeling it hostile entity. The other board members, mostly retired folks who just wanted to maintain property values and organize the annual 4th of July barbecue, started avoiding eye contact with both of us at the grocery store. Harold the treasurer actually switched to shopping at a store 3 miles further away just to avoid the awkwardness. The night of the first eviction attempt, Beverly slipped a notice under my door that looked almost official until you noticed the watermark was the HOA logo stretched grotesquely over a stock photo of 2 people shaking hands. The document threatened immediate lock change by dawn under something called the Sunrise Compliance Act, which is absolutely not a real thing unless you count needing caffeine to function before 8 a.m. Then she called the non-emergency line at 4 a.m., claiming I was squatting in my own home. When the dispatcher asked for documentation, Beverly emailed what she called an official letter from the sheriff, complete with a clip art badge that looked like it came from a 1990s educational software program. She also slid a certified envelope into my mailbox at 5 a.m. marked Final Edict in red Sharpie. That particular move turned out to be mail fraud, a phrase I learned very quickly after speaking with a surprisingly awake postal inspector who used words like forgery, false representation, and please immediately forward all your doorbell camera footage. The inspector, whose voice carried the weight of someone who had seen too many people think they could outsmart federal law, explained that tampering with mail delivery and forging certified mail constituted serious federal offenses. He seemed almost excited to have a case that did not involve stolen packages or damaged mailboxes. At 7:40 a.m., 2 squad cars and a postal inspector wearing a windbreaker that said Postal Inspection Service in letters so large you could read them from space arrived at my house. I played the video compilation of Beverly's rubber gavel performance art piece for them on my laptop. The officers watched with expressions ranging from confusion to barely suppressed amusement, then asked Beverly to produce real bylaws and real authority for her actions. Beverly's binder, which turned out to be a scrapbook of magazine clippings, pie charts she had drawn with colored pencils, and what appeared to be recipes for casseroles, did not meet their standards for legal documentation. She tried desperately to cite Section 16 of the Sunrise Ordinances, and the postal inspector just stared at her with the expression of a cat seeing a cucumber for the first time. By 9 a.m., the police had documented criminal trespass and false reporting charges. The postal inspector had carefully bagged the fake certified letter as evidence of mail fraud. The city's code enforcement officer, who had been summoned by what was now the neighborhood's most active group text in history, had Beverly sign a statement acknowledging she had placed notices on private property without any legal authority or consent. The legitimate HOA board members, now very much awake and very much concerned about potential lawsuits, held an emergency meeting in the community gazebo. During that meeting, they discovered Beverly had been using the general fund to purchase what she called compliance tools, which turned out to be a monogrammed bullhorn that said Beverly's Law in gold letters and a drone she claimed was for aerial lawn inspections. The treasurer, a retired accountant named Harold who wore suspenders every day of his life, nearly fainted when he saw the receipts. The drone alone cost $2,000, and she had enrolled herself in a 3-day compliance certification course at a resort in Scottsdale using HOA funds. The county judge scheduled a temporary restraining order hearing for the following week. Beverly arrived wearing a skirt suit the color of a fresh parking ticket and argued with a shaking voice that Willow Trace would collapse into what she called an anarchy of lawn flamingos if I was allowed to remain. My attorney, a soft-spoken man who looked like a cardigan sweater, had somehow passed the bar exam, calmly played the 3:15 a.m. doorbell footage on the courtroom's television. Beverly's Comic Sans decree filled the 70-inch screen like a ransom note written by a kindergartner having a bad day. The judge, a man in his 60s who had clearly seen every type of neighborhood dispute imaginable, rubbed his temples for a full 30 seconds before speaking. He then asked the postal inspector to explain the term federal offense in what he called very small, very simple words that everyone in this courtroom can understand. The inspector obliged with the patience of someone teaching a toddler why we do not put forks in electrical outlets. The court immediately suspended Beverly from all HOA duties, ordered a complete forensic audit of the association's finances, and granted me full attorney's fees totaling $8,700. When the forensic audit report arrived 2 weeks later, it read like a Thanksgiving turkey of financial impropriety. There were unauthorized purchases including a $200 nameplate for her home office door, something called a compliance retreat at a lakeside spa that cost $3,000, and my personal favorite, a line item simply labeled Emergency Gavel Night Edition for $89. The auditor also found she had been paying herself a salary, which was explicitly forbidden in the HOA charter that she apparently had never actually read. Beverly ultimately pled guilty to misdemeanor false reporting and mail tampering charges. The county prosecutor added community service to her sentence. The judge, displaying the dry humor of a man who collects novelty coffee mugs with lawyer jokes on them, assigned her to repaint every single one of our neighborhood's peeling mailbox posts under the direct supervision of the very homeowner she had tried to illegally evict. That homeowner was me, of course. I set the start time for 5:30 a.m. sharp, because tradition matters and irony is a beautiful thing. She received 120 hours of community service, 3 years of probation, and fines totaling $15,000. When the judge read the sentence, Beverly's face turned the exact shade of the violation notices she used to love taping to my mailbox, and she whispered to her court-appointed attorney in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear that this was not how things were supposed to work in her neighborhood.